Hello, I'm Judy Selesnik, and I'd like to welcome you to Meet the Candidates, a community education program presented by PAT, Peabody Access Telecommunications. We have invited the 11 primary candidates for the office of Sheriff of Essex County to participate in these interviews, to allow you folks at home to meet the candidates and become familiar with them and their views and priorities as we move forward toward the primary election on Thursday, September 8th, 2016. I am pleased that several of the primary candidates will be with us for interviews. As a bit of information, there are 13 candidates in total, 6 Democrats, William Castro of Methuen, a sergeant in the Essex County Sheriff's Department, Kevin Coppinger of Lynn, Lynn's police chief, Michael Marks of Lynn, current Middleton Jail Superintendent, Edward J. O'Reilly of Wenham, a defense attorney and former Gloucester firefighter, Jerry Robito of Lawrence, retired Middleton Jail Deputy Superintendent, and Paul Russell Jr. of Andover, a former Drug Enforcement Administration agent. 5 Republicans, Kenneth Berg of Danvers, a law enforcement officer, Jeffrey Gallo of Haverhill, a lieutenant in the Essex County Sheriff's Department, James Jajuga Jr. of Methuen, a lieutenant in the Methuen Police Department, Craig Lane of Newburyport, and Ann Manning Martin of Peabody, who is Deputy Superintendent of the Department of Corrections at the Lemuel Shattuck Hospital, and 2 unenrolled candidates, Mark Archer of Bedford, a retired state trooper and current attorney, and Kevin Leach of Manchester by the Sea, a former county commissioner. We have invited the Republican and Democratic primary candidates, since the unenrolled candidates will automatically be on the November 8th final election ballot, together with the winner of the Republican and Democratic primary. I'm pleased to welcome Jeffrey Gallo, a Republican from Salem, a lieutenant in the Essex County Sheriff's Department. Welcome, Jeff. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for the office and the personal and professional qualifications you feel you have that qualify you to be the Sheriff of Essex County.
Well, like you said, I'm a lieutenant for the department. I've been working there for 22 years. I am a shift commander. I also run the pre-release in Lawrence, where we house up to 400 inmates and we give them jobs. They do community release, community programs. We give them work release. And so we do a lot of work with the inmates as far as step-down programming. I myself have also been the president of the union for 3 years, where we got the officers a pretty good contract, and we did some good work with Frank Cousins, opening lines of communication and making us a more parity within the other departments for as far as our incomes. So I've done a lot for the department. I've run charity golf tournaments for the department for cancer research, and I also did 2 tournaments for an officer that had cancer. So I like to stay involved with the officers. I like to stay involved with the inmates. I know them personally as far as working with them for the last 22 years. I work very closely with them. And a lot of them have, like anybody else, we deal with people that have problems. And unfortunately, when they end up in jail, it's our job to make them better people. And I say unfortunately because it took them to come to us in order to get that way. And our job is to stop the recidivism and lower the rate, which is it's at like 47% now. And we need to lower that. So with me, I want to run because I've been there. This is my life. This is what I know. This is what I'm good at. And I want to help people. And that's why I'm doing it.
Okay, well, what do you think are the 2 major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and how will you deal with these issues?
Well, I think the issues are more inmate related. Our issues involve attacking this opiate crisis is number 1. We have recently opened up a detox for the females, as we already have one for the males. This is very important to move forward in catching these people before they get out of jail and teaching them how to move on with their lives. So it's going to be very interesting how we move forward with that. Me personally, I've lost my father to addiction. He was a heroin addict, and it touches me close to home because when he contracted hepatitis C, I ended up losing him. So I understand what these children of addicts go through, and for me, that's the priority number one as far as the department goes. The other thing that I would change would be to lower the recidivism rate amongst inmates as well. We need to get them better vocational skills. We need to get them educational. We need to get them mental health assessments, proper mental health assessments. I think that once we assess them mentally, medically, we can work with them. And the only way to do that is to hire the best trained professionals in the mental health field, in behavioral science field, in behavioral health science field, in order to get that done.
Well, what changes or improvements would you consider making to the Sheriff's Department?
Well, I would consider moving forward with more staff, officers. I may implement a part-time officer, reserve officer training, as well as put them on the units, on-job training, because when these guys, when these officers first start to work there, they're kind of shocked at what they walk into. So I'd like them to be prepared more for working the units, and I think that if we add more officers, we'll be able to give more full-time officers time off that they can use for themselves. Officers that work there go through a lot of mental health issues as well. It's not very easy. It's a thankless job. It's the most thankless job in law enforcement, I believe. These guys are locked up with the inmates. There's 2 officers there with 120 inmates every day. So you feel like you're locked up with them. It's very important that we do discuss the officers' well-being as well as helping the inmates. It has worn on myself. It has worn on everybody that works there. You get some form of PTSD. When you work for that department, you see things that the normal person going to work would never see. So that's why I, having been working there for a long time, I understand what the officers go through, and I know how to help them. I know what works. So I would help them.
And are there any other changes you would want to make?
Well, I would like to change as far as some of the vocational skills that I'd like to give them. I'd like to add a culinary arts program. And like
this is for the people who are incarcerated?
Yes. When people go to prison, when they get out of jail, they have nowhere to go. So some of them have nowhere to go. And when they don't have an education level higher than 8th grade, and when they don't have any vocational skills or any way to get a job, not many places want to hire a convicted felon or a convicted convict. So I think if we give them the skills, such as mechanical, electrical, and basic carpentry, if we can implement some type of program as far as getting them to learn how to get a job and to teach them how to dress for a job, how to interview for a job, it's easier for them and they'll feel more confident when they get out. So I think I would implement some of those things as well.
Okay. Why do you think people should vote for you for Sheriff of Essex County?
Well, I believe I am the most qualified. I am the most well-rounded person running for this position. I have the floor experience. I worked segregation unit. I worked the gang unit. I've worked pretty much every unit in the facility. I've run the primary response team. I've had to deal with violent inmates. I've had to deal with mentally ill inmates. I know what the officers go through. Also, I have the background of being the president of the union. So I understand how important their contract is to them and how much they need us to abide by it. I helped write their contract, so I know their contract inside and out. I also believe that I am very well suited for this position because I want to help people. I have the background, I have the life experience. I'm a supervisor, I've worked on the budget, I work on the scheduling, I've done a lot for the officers on a personal level as well as helping to get their contract, like I said, in the experience that I have.
Well, great. What else would you like to tell the folks watching this at home and deciding for whom they will vote?
Well, I would like to say that if you vote for me, you're voting for a person that owes nobody. I owe nobody. I owe no favors. I don't think that if you run for this position, you should have the officers helping you to get elected. It's very important for me not to take money from them. I think it's very important for me also to understand that I know they're helping me, I know they want to help me, and I know they're here morally for support, but I don't think that it's right that officers contribute to anyone else's campaign. It's very, very stressful on the staff. I don't want to see anybody get in trouble or targeted for backing me in this election, and I will not have that. And it will be easier for me to promote, to eliminate positions that I think are redundant. I think I could easily cut the budget, and I won't have to hurt any feelings because I owe nobody. And that's important. That's important to the taxpayers. I want the best possible staff that I could have. And if I don't bring in people that I'm friends with, I'm going to bring in people that are most professionally trained and the best for the job.
Well, I want to thank you very much for the interview, Jeff, and I wish you the very best of luck in the primary.
Thank you very much.
Take care. I'm pleased to welcome James Jajuga, Jr., a Republican from Methuen and a lieutenant in the Methuen Police Department. Welcome, Jim. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Would you please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for this office and the personal and professional qualifications you feel you have that qualify you to be Sheriff of Essex County?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me again, and I appreciate you taking the time to interview me. My entire adult life has been focused on public safety. For the last 16 years, I've worked on the Methuen Police Department, the last 9 of which I've served as a lieutenant. In the mid-2000s, I decided that I wanted to broaden my horizons, and I went to law school. I graduated and passed the bar in 2009, so since 2009, I've also been an attorney. But my entire focus has been on public safety. When I look at public safety as a whole, I try to look at the problems we face, not just outside, but inside correctional facilities. And I thought this was a perfect opportunity to utilize my unique skill set and serve the public. So now we started a campaign and we're working towards the goal of getting elected as the next Essex County Sheriff.
Well, great. What do you think are the 2 major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and how will you deal with these issues?
Essex County has a unique problem. Now, it's has a disproportionate, number of inmates. Now, the reason that is because the Merrimack Valley in particular, and that's Essex County, is the epicenter of the opioid crisis. Now, inside the facility is just a microcosm of the issues we face on the outside. So what we really need to do is make a concerted effort, coordinated effort to, number one, address the opioid epidemic and see if we can't somehow come to a resolution, see if we can't reduce the rate. And recidivism is always an issue, not just in Essex County, but throughout the entire country and throughout the world with any type of incarcerated subjects.
Do you think the recidivism is a result of the opioids or the drug problem?
Absolutely.
So that once they get out, they go back on? And
Absolutely. 90% of your inmates have a substance abuse issue. Now, if you add in mental illness, abused individuals, you have a real problem. Now, what do they do to help facilitate their addiction? They commit crimes. And that's why the two have to work hand in hand, the community as well as the correctional side. They need to work hand in hand because one can't exist without the other.
Well, what changes or improvements would you consider making to the Sheriff's Department?
I think Sheriff Cousins has been doing a great job. You have to address current trends. Right now, the number one issue is, as I had mentioned, the opioid crisis. The sheriff has done a great job. We need to continue to reach out to the community because it's the community that really has its finger on the pulse. It's those that live and breathe. They understand what's going on. They understand the issues that they face. So what I would continue is outreach to the community. Now, in addition, we want to make sure that people are held accountable for their crimes. and we want to address the issue in a fiscally responsible way, which Sheriff Cousins has done a great job. So we want to continue to build upon that while addressing the current trends in criminality and the correctional institution.
Why do you think people should vote for you for sheriff?
I have a unique perspective, not just from a law enforcement standpoint, but also from a legal background. My entire focus and passion is on serving the public. I've worked in my entire career in that, and now I want to continue. And I think if given the opportunity, I would be able to utilize my unique skill set and be the best suited candidate for the job.
Okay. What else would you like to tell the folks at home who are watching this and deciding for whom they should vote?
I want everyone to understand that we need to look outside the box if we want to come up with solutions to the problems we face. I also want to make sure that we stress we cannot view correctional facilities, whether it's state or federal or whether it's county correctional facilities, as a separate entity. We need to understand that the issues that are faced inside the correctional institutions are the same issues we face outside those confined walls. So one cannot exist without the other. We need to have a coordinated effort. We need to work with community groups. We need to work with social and civic leaders. We need to work with governmental groups. We need to all work together in order to reduce recidivism, save taxpayers' money, and also to address in this area specifically the opioid crisis, which is absolutely at epidemic proportions at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that how serious that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for the interview and wish you good luck in the Republican primary.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to welcome Craig Lane, a Republican from Newburyport and Sergeant with the Sheriff's Department. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for this office and the personal and professional qualifications you feel you have that qualify you to be Essex County Sheriff.
Okay. Well, I've been with the Sheriff's Department for 15 years. I've been a sergeant for the last 10. I originally spent 15 years in the private sector. I have a bachelor's degree in business management. I worked for several large corporations. I worked for AT&T Universal Card as a fraud investigator. I started transitioning away from corporate world. Went back to school, got an associate's degree in criminal justice, went through the Police Corrections Academy in Florida. Met my wife, who was a Newburyport native down there. She was going to school. When she finished, she said she was coming up here. I said I would miss her, so I wasn't going back to the snow and cold. I'm from Michigan originally, but as you can see, she won that argument. Mm-hmm. Basically, the experience I've had at the Sheriff's Department over the last 15 years, looking at it from the outside and looking at it from more or less a business operations perspective, there's a great area that can be improved upon. If you kind of looked at it as a business with the taxpayers being the stockholders that you're responsible to and ran it more like a business as opposed to more the political animal that it's become over the last 20 years, there's definitely some room for some efficiencies. That's something I would like to certainly address, as well as just the basic security issues that are inherent to the day-to-day operation. I've spent my entire 15 years in the Middleton facility, and I currently work in the segregation special management unit, gang unit. And it's just one of the things that, you hear in the press, there is, of course, a huge focus on programs, recovery, the opioid crisis, which, of course, certainly needs the attention that it's getting. But the fundamentals of corrections, care, custody, and control is something that can't be overlooked. If you can't run the jail in an efficient manner, you're not going to have the funding available to operate and offer those programs that are desperately needed. Mm-hmm.
Well, you're kind of getting into the next question, which is, what do you think are the two major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department now?
Currently, today, I worked earlier today, our count in the Middleton facility was 1,214 inmates. That is pretty much max capacity. Now, we just opened the Female Detox Center, which is offering about 40 beds. Again, greatly needed. We just had the male detox center that opened, another 40, give or take, beds available there as well. But unfortunately, our population count is kind of low. Once it spikes back up, we may have a bit of a overcrowding situation, which is definitely something that needs to be addressed. The state, through the Department of Capital Asset Management, is sinking quite a bit of money into renovations at the facility right now. But again, just available space is an issue that's definitely going to need to be addressed in the near future.
So the money is not going into expansion?
It's not going for expansion. It's basically just for maintenance and upkeep and energy efficiencies, which in the long run will save quite a bit of money. But again, the jail was originally designed to hold about just under 600. It was double bunked the second year of operations, and it's basically been overcrowded since then. So from about 92 up to present, it's holding way more than it was ever designed to.
Okay, well, what changes or improvements would you consider making to the Sheriff's Department?
Well, a lot of the organizational structure. In corporate America, you typically have about 4 levels of management from bottom to top. I heard an interview with one of our opponents on the Democrat side, Superintendent Marks, where he indicated he has 1 direct report. Well, yes, that's true. He has 1 direct report, who has 1 direct report, who has 1 direct report, who has 6 direct reports, who each have 2 direct reports. So you basically have about 6 levels of management just in the housing side, which again is the primary function, which is the, if you want to call it, meat and potatoes of the operations. That's definitely something that needs to be reorganized. Again, from an efficiency standpoint, what it costs the state, and you look at the Department of Corrections, at their model, it's definitely not the most efficient operational way of doing things.
So you would change the organizational structure?
Organizational structure would definitely be changed. One of the, up until recently, I was also head of the union that represents 425 members, officers and sergeants. You have a high turnover in this business just because a lot of people use it as a stepping stone, to further their careers into law enforcement. There's things that you could do to stem that a bit, which a lot of people, they will come into correction. Some decide to leave, some decide to stay. There's definitely a morale issue among the rank and file. Just because of the job itself, tends to, it's historically one of the industries that has the highest substance abuse, divorce rates, and it's the nature of the job itself, unfortunately. And there's things that could be addressed that aren't necessarily monetary, that wouldn't cost the department anything, but that could certainly make the life of the officers a whole lot better. And those are certain things that should be addressed as well.
Okay. Well, why do you think people should vote for you for sheriff?
Well, this is a large organization. You're talking just under 700 employees. You're talking a budget of over $50 million. It's, and unfortunately, the way Massachusetts has it structured, it's an elected office. I don't want to begrudge the sheriff. He's done a lot of great things and made some serious improvements from when I started to what it is today. But there's a lot of things that can be done more if you approach it more from a law enforcement perspective or corrections perspective than from a political perspective. And again, if unfortunately the state doesn't have a requirement to take the job other than to get 1,000 certified signatures and get your name on the ballot. I certainly don't agree with that per se. I do think you should actually have some law enforcement or corrections experience. It certainly is going to make it a much more efficient way to, again, you can't take someone from, it's one thing if you're a baker by trade and you want to go, run for office and become a sheriff. It's nice if you actually have some knowledge about what's going on inside your operation, so you don't have to basically depend on all these other people that you have to bring in. And if you're bringing in all these other people to do the job, again, you're losing the efficiency.
Okay. What else would you like to tell the folks watching this at home and deciding for whom they should vote?
Well, what they should do is, basically look at the people who are running, look at the experience they have. There's also a definite difference between working at a jail and working in a jail. Again, the care, custody, and control aspect is the primary function. You need someone who knows the inner workings of the operations, someone who has, in my case, I think the outside experience and business experience to look at it and run it in a more efficient operation, which again, if your goal, and again, not to take anything away from those who are pushing for the programs, because we definitely have those, definitely need them, but unless you are able to run this organization in an efficient manner and have the funding, those programs are going to disappear. So that's what I'd like to do, and would appreciate their support.
Well, Craig, I want to thank you very much for the interview and wish you best of luck in the primary.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to welcome Ann Manning Martin, a Republican from Peabody, who is Deputy Superintendent of the Department of Corrections at Lemuel Shattuck Hospital. Did I get that right, Ann?
Yes, you did.
Well, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself, including why you decided to run for this office and the personal and professional qualifications you feel you have that qualify you to be Sheriff of Essex County.
Certainly, thank you very much. Well, yes, my name is Ann Manning Martin from Peabody, and I currently am a Deputy Superintendent with the Department of Corrections, and I've been in corrections for 25 years, and I worked my way up from caseworker to HIV counselor to record supervisor to reentry supervisor to director of treatment up until my current status as deputy superintendent, which I've been a deputy superintendent for 6 or 7 years now. And prior to working at the Shattuck Hospital Correctional Unit, I worked at Boston Pre-Release Center, which is a 200-bed facility, male facility, where inmates go out to work during the day. And actually they worked in the evenings as well, but it was a 200-bed facility, and I oversaw that as well. I have an undergraduate degree in criminal justice from St. Anselm College and a master's degree in criminal justice administration from UMass Lowell. And as you know, I also am on the Peabody City Council as a counselor at large, and I've been doing that for 9 years. And prior to that, I was on the school committee for 8 years. So I have elected experience as well, and I understand as the sheriff, as an elected position, I already understand for the last 17 years that I answer to the voters and to the taxpayers directly, and I'm held accountable to them. So I understand that role as an elected official, and the Sheriff's Department, as you know as well, is an elected office. It's a very powerful and important office, and it's important that we have someone in that field, in that position, now that Sheriff Frank Cousins is leaving after 20 years of public service in that role. It's important that we have somebody with the vision, experience, temperament, and drive to provide safety in the community and to bring experience from other areas into that role. And I believe that I can hit the ground running with all that experience that I do have on day one.
And what do you think are the two major issues facing the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and how would you deal with those issues?
Sure. I know that there has been a lot of talk, and I'm very happy that everyone is talking about the opioid crisis. And I have to credit quite a few people for bringing that issue to the forefront in order that people can feel that they can talk about it. And I've been in this business, again, for 25 years, and people never spoke of this as they are today, that you can't go to a cookout or a barbecue these days without parents, grandparents coming up and talking about openly that their grandchildren, their niece, their nephew, their son is in 6 months recovery. And they speak of it with such pride and with such hope. And it's a cultural change. And that's been done by the leadership of Governor Charlie Baker, Sheriff Frank Cousins. And also I want to put a shout out there for the Chief of Police in Gloucester and his mayor. She came from the treatment side of the business as well. So she supported his very bold move to think outside the box, do things differently. Because in corrections today and in public safety today, we have to start doing things differently because what we have been doing hasn't been working. And we need to start focusing on recidivism, and I will commit myself to implementing data-driven, evidence-based programming that directly affects recidivism. If we can reduce recidivism simply by 5% across the board, across the state, we would save millions and millions of dollars. Those dollars could better be spent in focusing on substance abuse education, fighting the opioid crisis. It could go to roads and bridges instead of just going right back into corrections because we're not addressing recidivism. And most people don't know because they're not in the business, but of all the inmates that are incarcerated right now, today, 2/3 of them have already recidivated. They're on their 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 15th incarceration. It's not their first incarceration. So what we need to do is be smarter, and we are getting smarter in corrections. It's evolving. We take all the data that we can capture on the individuals that are in, and we focus on their criminogenic risk and needs. We capture that data. We provide reentry programs. We plug them back into the community with mentors and recovery coaches, and we plug them into the communities that they're going home to in order that they can succeed and not recidivate, so that they're not going out cold with no help, nowhere to go. Because again, a lot of these men and women have recidivated already. So they know they're going out, and if you give them the option, the voluntary option to participate in these proven programs, again, it has to be voluntary, because then they will show that they're motivated. And they will say, geez, I've done this before and I failed, either once, twice, 3 times. And if there's help out there in the community for me, I want it. I want help to find recovery. I want help to find a job. I want help to be a better parent or be a better son or daughter. And all of this is a win-win for the communities. It provides for healthy communities. It provides for public safety. It, again, cuts down on recidivism, saves the taxpayers money that can, again, be better spent on things that are cost-effective and more productive for all of us.
So basically, you're saying the Sheriff's Department isn't going to do it alone. It sort of takes a village to help.
It does take a village, and what the Sheriff's Department can do now, and also Sheriff Frank Cousins, when he first came in, I think he came in '96, but as soon as he got there, he recognized that women were not being served, weren't getting any programs or services in Essex County. They were all going to Framingham. Now, we still have some women being housed at Framingham. I think today's count might be something of 120 to 130, and that would be sentenced. They're doing county time, but they're at MCI Framingham. Or they're pre-sentenced. They haven't even gone to see a judge yet, and they're being held there. So it's about 120, 130. But before then, there wasn't the Women in Transition program. The Sheriff Cousins instituted that. So he brought some women that are pre-release or minimum level security back to their own county and provided them services. And so he started to do that. What I want to do is pick up from there and bring all the women back from Framingham so that they can be closer to their families, closer to their children, closer to their parents. So, because there is no public transportation to get out to Framingham. They haven't been sentenced. They haven't seen a judge. It's not fair, it's not equal treatment, and it's not good for our communities. Again, has to be healthy communities, and you plug them into services in the community. And the family is the #1 asset to cutting down on recidivism, keeping people in recovery, and cutting down crime. It is the #1 important factor in corrections and in public safety and in having healthy communities. So yes, it takes more than the Sheriff's Department. It takes the Sheriff's Department working in concert with police chiefs, with the district attorney, with probation, with parole, and with nonprofit community-based agencies that care about their community, and they want to provide these services to these very people because they want healthy communities. So yes, and the conversations are taking place in the communities with these nonprofits, but I'm going to make it a priority to be loud about those conversations and make those connections and make those things happen. Because as sheriff, you can make things happen. It's one of the most powerful and autonomous elected positions in the state. And if you want to make something happen as sheriff, you make it happen, and it will happen. Just as Sheriff Cousins just opened up 42-bed detox for men about 6 to 8 months ago. Just this week, he's opening up a 42 detox bed for women. That's 84 beds for detox when this state is in dire, dire need of detox. He saw a need, he saw an opportunity to provide it, and he made it happen. Sheriff can do that, and that's what I want to do. I want to be that type of sheriff that can address the needs of the community, make for safer, healthier communities, and make good things happen.
Well, I like hearing that women will be able to get the treatment in their own community as they deserve.
It's very important. It is.
What changes or improvements would you consider making to the Sheriff's Department?
Increased training for officers and holding staff and inmates accountable. I'm not necessarily saying that those are changes. That's just my style of management. That is what I do now. I hold everyone from the top down accountable and dotting their I's and crossing their T's. And I would ensure that I continue to do that, because that is how, when you take your eye off the ball, you start dropping balls and bad things can happen. So I hold staff and inmates accountable. I'm kind of stern. And they appreciate a good day's work, both staff, inmates, and they also appreciate being held accountable and being treated as professionals and being expected to do good work, and for inmates to, work their program and be better people and come out of corrections better than they went in. That's our job collectively. So that is another thing that I would focus on.
And why do you think people should vote for you for sheriff?
I think they should vote for me for sheriff because I, again, in addition to everything that I've said with my education and my 25 years experience and my commitment to my community as an elected official, I'm a little different than the rest of the candidates. Of all the candidates that are running that have correctional experience, I'm the only one that came up from the treatment side of the house. The rest of the candidates for sheriff, if they have correctional experience, are all from the custody side of the house. They're correction officers, and that's the track they came up on. So I've come up from the treatment side. I've also risen to the level of managing correction officers. Over the last 6-7 years, I've managed hundreds of correction officers and thousands of inmates. I'm already at that level of running prisons, and I've been doing that for a long time. I'm also a little different in respect that of the candidates that do have correctional experience, I come from the outside, but I come with fresh eyes, but experienced eyes. Experienced in corrections, but they're fresh eyes. So I'm not an internal candidate that already has established relationships, maybe established preconceived notions. I'm more objective, and coming in, again, with 25 years experience, doing this very job. So I will be able to hit the ground running, and I will be an objective leader to be able to look at things that are working well and maybe look at things that aren't working so well or maybe are outdated and aren't up to speed with today's corrections and take it in another direction. But take it from where it is today to the next level, because there are a lot of good things going on at the Essex County Sheriff's Department, a lot of good programming, a lot of great staff, and they're committed, they're professional, they care about their job and they care about their communities. So I can take it from that level, take those folks, and we move it forward into the corrections of tomorrow and better serve our community.
Well, and for the folks who are watching this at home, what else would you like to tell them as they decide for whom they're going to vote?
Well, I certainly would ask directly for their vote. I would ask them to consider me, given my commitment, my education, and my drive to make our community, all 34 cities and towns, a better, safer place to live in. And I would also like to point out that if folks at home want to vote for me, which I hope you do, and again, I ask for that vote, that the election is September 8th. It's a Thursday this year, oddly enough. It's not on a Tuesday, so a lot of folks may miss it. So please remember that the primary is on Thursday, September 8th. And if you'd like to vote for me, and you are either unenrolled or Republican, you would pull the Republican ballot on September 8th, and that's a Thursday. So if you are not unenrolled or Republican and you'd like to vote for me, you can simply go to the Secretary of State's website and quickly, it's very easy now, to switch your affiliation to either Republican or unenrolled, and you'd be able to vote for me on the primary on Thursday, September 8th. Otherwise, you won't be able to vote for me. You have to wait for November. And I'll gladly take your vote in November as well. But if folks could do that, if they'd like to vote for me, you do have to do that, and I would appreciate your support.
Well, Ann, I want to thank you for the interview and wish you really good luck in the
Thank you, my friend
Republican
Judy.
primary.
Yes, thank you very much.